Those students online, do you see my screen?
Yes, we can see.
Okay. Am I recording? Yes, yeah. Okay. So, welcome to the first practical class. Today we won't be doing too much of practical, but I just want to give you some context on what are we going to have for assignments 1 and 2. Okay. So as you all have known, this coursework is going to have three courseworks, right? So midterm, which will give you 10%, assignment 1, which will give you 20%, and then another 30% will be assignment 2. So the assignments will be one project by itself, but this is a group project. Okay, so one project split into two parts. One project split into assignment 1 and assignment 2. So how does it work? So for assignment 1, what we will do is, at the end of the day, this entire project, you will need to build either an algorithm to classify some images or to classify some text, right? So at the end of the day, you will need to produce a report for assignment 1 as well as another report for assignment 2. Okay, so let's go through the document here. We'll first go through assignment 1. Clear so far? Okay, no question. Right, so assignment 1 will give you 20%. So due date is around this date. Submission is through my times. So what is the overview of this assignment? Okay, so this assignment will prepare you to explore any use cases of computer vision and natural language processing in any data set that you choose. Okay, say for example, computer vision, we can choose a data set that consists of maybe cats and dogs. Then we want to classify the images into cats and dogs. Fruits, how to classify those fruits using some algorithm, computer vision algorithm. Okay, natural language processing is also fine, but based on my previous experience, students used to prefer images. So yeah. So you will apply these machine learning and deep learning algorithms to solve any data problem that you select. What are the requirements? So this project will require you to identify any opportunity for CV or NLP. Then we apply the techniques to address this problem. Then we present, analyze, and compare the results. Finally, we conclude our project. So then, I mentioned just now, this project will be completed in 2 group assignments. So 1 project, 2 assignments. How does it work? So for this assignment 1, we will need to do just a few things. We do not have to implement the solution. We don't have to code. Assignment 1 is all about theory, okay, based on our studies. So research and studies. So what we need to do is to formulate any problem statement based on the data set that we have found and we want to work on. Then we summarize and analyze the literatures, okay, at least 8 to 10. Then we propose a solution just to propose. We do not have to implement them in this assignment 1, okay? So the following 2 sentences are just some guideline. So let's select I wouldn't say challenging, but any data set that will allow us to showcase our knowledge and creativity. And also what we really want to learn and gain from this project will be detailed analysis of potential models. Okay. So this assignment 1 shall then lay the groundwork for our project in assignment 2. So whichever that we study here should be related to how we want to implement our solution in assignment 2. And for this assignment, the only programming language that you need here is Python. Okay. So far so good. Okay. So these are the learning outcomes from this assignment 1. So you will be able to analyze existing solution with scientific justification, because we will be doing very extensive literature review. We will be reading papers, okay? And this will also include adapting your ideas and approaches for the given case studies. Then in terms of assessment, very important, originality, okay? The work must be original of yourself, means you must do the work yourself. And in case we are borrowing some idea from other resources, websites or books, we must always cite them. So then how do we assess originality from the educator's end? So I will require both a similarity score as well as an AI generated content score from Turnitin. So from your student view in Turnitin, you will only be able to get this similarity score. And from my view, I will be able to see another score, which is called the AI generated content score. So we have a certain threshold for this. So as a baseline or as a suggestion that whether this work is done by human or it's done by AI. Okay. So yes, so this score will help us to evaluate. So please submit these scores alongside your assignment. The total score for this assignment is 100%. Passing mark is 50%. Okay. So what do you have to deliver in this first assignment of the entire project? First of all, data set. So here data set, it doesn't mean that we have to create our own data set. It doesn't mean that we have to take a lot of pictures, but we will just get any ready-made data set online, especially from 2 of these websites, okay? So the reason why I would encourage you to use the existing data set is because we can then save a lot of time on data collection, and we can go straight to exploring how these CV and NLP algorithms work. Okay, so that's the focus of this project and the purpose of this module. So don't focus on data collection. Instead, we try to build and train algorithm. So that's the most essential part of this module. We are trying to train the brain of a system to help us do tasks. So let's just focus on that part. And yes, we will leverage on existing resources only. So some of the ideas on what you can do for computer vision, in case you are more interested in computer vision or images, let's try to focus on image classification or fake image detection. Okay? In case you are interested in natural language processing, then you can focus on sentiment analysis, spam email detection. Okay? Any question? No questions so far. Okay. So yeah. So that's on our scope. So what do we deliver at the end of the day? So assignment 1, this will be a report, maximum 20 pages. Okay. What should be written inside the report will be abstract. Abstract is a summary of the entire project. We'll go through one of the sample report later on, don't worry. Then we'll need an introduction section that provides the background information of the chosen topic. Say, for example, if we choose a data set on garbage classification, we have a library of image with garbage and they are labeled. So then we talk about garbage detection, stuff like that. So under literature review, we will then study and try to understand what is the current state of research from these papers. So literature review and introduction is slightly different. How are they different? Introduction focus on the whole picture in terms of how this thing is going to contribute to the society. But in literature review, the focus here will be the study of what algorithms is already in use, right? And what kind of performance have people achieved out there? So that will become our benchmark. Say if the researcher out there currently achieve an accuracy of 50% in garbage classification, then we want to be able to at least achieve 50% in that case, right? Then in terms of methodology, so methodology is a section where you need to describe which algorithm are you going to apply. Say, for example, in the lecture, we talk about AlexNet, so far and so forth. So those are called algorithms, or those are called architectures. So in case we choose AlexNet in our problem. So we write about AlexNet in this methodology. We don't have to write all the methodology out there, but just the architecture that we choose to implement in our project. Okay, so so this will showcase how much you understand the methodology that you choose to use. So with this, we can conclude assignment 1. So that shouldn't be more than 20 pages anyway. Okay, and a conclusion should be a short one. So then, what are the submission requirements? So to make the report a complete, readable report, presentable and professional, we will also encourage you to at least have a project title, some acknowledgement page. So acknowledgement is really important, but here it is stated here optional. I do think that acknowledgement section is important because we must thank the person who have contributed those data sets that allow us to learn cvnlp, right? So please include a very small section. I will show you how to do it later on. Similarity score, AI score, table of contents, references. Okay. So submission is a group report due by week 12. Okay, but I do encourage you to submit this early because this is an assignment 1, which will lead to how are you going to run your assignment 2. Okay, so if you submit earlier, then maybe I can take a look earlier. In case there's anything that you need to change, you still have time to change. Okay, I just want to make sure that you pass this subject, yeah? So I don't want to fail anyone in terms of coursework. Coursework is there to help you in this module. So in terms of formatting, some guidelines here: 12-point font, 1.5 line spacing. So write your report in your own words, cite or quote any text that you borrow some idea from. In this assignment, as I mentioned, there is no implementation, no coding. Therefore, this is not applicable. And in case you include any images in your introduction, in your methodology, please remember to label all your figures as well as tables. Yeah, and always remember the title or the caption of figures are always below the figures, and the caption for tables comes before the table. Okay. Okay, so now what do you submit? A soft copy of full report and Turnitin originality report. Okay, and below I have the marking scheme on how do we plan our effort in each of the chapters. Okay, so to conclude, this project will have an abstract, chapter 1 introduction, chapter 2 literature review, chapter 3 methodology, conclusion, submission requirement 10%. And this is how you could score each of the buckets with these requirements. Okay?
The reference format is APA or
just make sure that you are consistent. APA or Harvard are fine. Any more questions? So that's on assignment 1. I will also give you another document which breaks down all of this section with a guidance of how can you go about with these chapters. So don't worry about that. We will also still go through all of this section from time to time. We'll allocate some time in the future classes to talk about it. Yeah, so that to make sure that you are on the right track. Okay. Okay, so on assignment 2, this is the due date, which is, I think, 2 weeks after assignment 1. I think. So overview. This is slightly different from assignment 1, so we'll go through this one. So in assignment 1, we have already laid the groundwork. We already know what algorithm do we want to implement, what data set do we have. So in this assignment 2, we really focus on coding them, running the code, and analyzing the result. Finally, discussing whether we have achieved what have we achieved. Okay, so here we will implement and then discuss. So in this assignment, we will implement a solution proposed in assignment 1 using Python only. So these are some of the relevant libraries that we will use. So don't worry about that. We shall come to this in future practical classes. Here we write the code, conduct experiments, refine our approach. Then finally, it is very, very important for us to analyze the results. Okay? Analyze the result as in we want to assess our performance against the desired metrics. Say, for example, what metric do we want to use to say that, hey, our model is good enough, more than good. Okay? Then we also want to identify some weaknesses compared to benchmark. So other than weaknesses, maybe there are also some strengths. So in case there are some strengths which are identified, we can also mention here in this assignment. So we also want to be able to propose some improvement steps based on the analysis for enhanced performance. So sometimes if we were to know some more advanced technique out there that can make this project better, but we don't have the sufficient computer power to run those, it is okay. We will run for this academic project. We will run what we can do. Right? We'll run what we can do within what we have here. Then we will put the proposal of a more advanced model inside a section called recommendation and analysis. Yeah. So as to show that you actually know these things exist, this technology exists, but we just don't have the resources right now. Okay. Learning outcome is slightly different. So this one requires you to collaborate effectively. So split your work and be a good team member. Yeah. Assessment wise, it will be quite similar to the previous one. Make sure that they are original. So over here, the final report, deliverables is a final report. So this final report will build upon the previous assignment by adding 3 new chapters 4 to 6. But the chapter 1 to 3, which we have done in assignment 1, will be included here for context and also continuity. But they won't be re-evaluated. So you just copy and paste from the previous assignment. So in this assignment, focus on describing what steps you take to finish the project, present our finding, then we explain. Yeah. So report requirements. So we will rework on our abstract. So we have an abstract in assignment 1. So right here, we will just extend the abstract a little bit with our findings as well as conclusion. Introduction is from previous assignment. Literature review also from previous assignment. Methodology is also from previous assignment. Therefore, they won't be re-evaluated. Okay. So the focus of this project will be implementation and results. How do you report the steps you take? And how do you present the result that you have achieved? Then what are your recommendation and analysis? Finally, conclusion. Submission requirements is similar to the previous one. And that's not all. For assignment 2, we will also require a project presentation which gives us 10 marks. So each group must produce 20 minutes of project presentation. So every members must participate and all the face must be shown in the video. So for this, I don't think that we have time for, a live presentation session. So what I require you to do is a recording, and you upload the recording somewhere and submit the link of your recording. Okay? So yeah. In your presentation, you will also need to produce some slides so that it helps your explanation. Yeah. Submission is quite straightforward. So submit each file, and these are some of the guidelines where I need you to, format, to name your file accordingly so that it's easier for me to retrieve or enter the mark. And the marking schemes is provided below. Okay. Questions? Excited? You have attended my previous class before. It was fun, right?
Yeah.
He said it was fun. Okay. Do we have any question from online students? No question. Okay, good. Okay, so now there are two things that we can do. First, we can go through the guideline on how can we go about with each of the chapters. And another thing that we can do is to go through a sample report. Which one do we do? Sample. Okay. Sample. Okay. Yeah, so that's how it would look like, your cover page. And this is how you submit the scores, similarity scores. I will provide a Microsoft Word template for this entire report, so don't worry about this. Marking rubrics. Then this is how you will submit your data set. So provide a link and the link to the video. Okay. So this is how an acknowledgement session will look like. We will always need to thank the person who have contributed the data set and everyone which you think you should acknowledge, including your pets, including your friends, including everyone which contributed to the success of your project. Okay. So this is how an abstract would look like. It should be very short and sweet. So a one paragraph abstract which summarizes everything that we have done in the entire project. So usually the first sentence will summarize chapter 1. The second to third question will describe what you have done. Then finally, the big session here will be a very executive or very top line summary of your results and finding. And finally, your conclusion and recommendation. So in the past, many students used to write this abstract in many paragraphs, and that is not the right way of doing abstract. Yeah, abstract is a one paragraph passage. So table of contents. 49 pages, which is good. Just nice. So a lot of pages, not because I require a lot from you, but mostly those are coming from the screenshots that is included in this report. So for introduction, so these students, this group of students, they have done a image classification on garbage images. So in introduction, what they explain is about why do we have to do this garbage classification, which starts from environmental pollution perspective. So, and how can this computer vision help to address this problem? Okay. Then, So then the research goal. So how do we go about to formulate this research goal? Is to say like, hey, we want to build a CV model for what prediction, and our research objective is to do something else. Yeah. And this is how the literature review will look like. So literature review should can start with a table summary of all the papers that we have read. Okay. So for example, I would encourage you to put your findings into a table format. Therefore, it is easier to read or analyze. Okay. So whenever we read papers, there are many information that we can abstract from the papers. You do not have to read the entire paper from the first word to the last word. But what we need to do is to extract some of the useful information from those papers. For example, which data set are they using? What is the size of the data that they have? What are some of the image processing steps that they have taken? What are the models that they have implemented? What is their result? Okay. So once you have this summary or table, it becomes very clear to us that which model is actually best so far in garbage classification. Say, for example, this AlexNet is able to achieve 99.5%. So we know that this architecture is suitable for certain for this data set, and therefore that is something that we can use. That is something that we can use. Okay. So after we have this table shows the ability of us in summarizing the information from literatures, from research paper. Usually one research paper is about 10 pages, and we are summarizing everything into one small table. So after we have this summarization, what we need to do is analysis. We need to analyze this information. Say which one is best, which one is worse, things like that. So what it leads to is then your analysis of this table. Okay. Right? Say for example, you can study which kind of processing method will contribute to the best accuracy, which kind of model will contribute to best accuracy, things like that, in paragraph form. Okay. So then is that all? We first summarize the information, then we analyze the information and put them in paragraph in a very descriptive manner. And finally, what do? There's no use if we just study those papers like that. We summarize, we analyze. Finally, this analysis should lead to actions. So how do we put this into action? So we need to, I would recommend you to include a session called gap analysis. So gap analysis is after we summarize, after we analyze, we will have a lot of questions. Say, for example, you may come to me and ask, Miss, this is what I found. Do you think this model is better to implement or that model is better to implement? The answer is we can put that as our gap analysis or problem statement here in a question format. So with this, we will be able to scope our research. Okay? Say, for example, we know that people are using this model, this model, this model. We don't know which is better, then we'll just try out. Okay? Choose two that we can try out. So if we ask a question that say, is this architecture performing better or this architecture will perform better? So then our scope of research will be to compare what? The accuracy and also the model performance of a VGG as well as ResNet. Okay? Simple, huh? And manage, yeah? Okay. So that will conclude our chapter 1. Chapter 2, literature review. Okay? Then chapter 3 is methodology. So what do we include in methodology? We have to describe our data set. What do we have? And how do we want to go about with our data preparation? And what kind of model do we want to implement? Just analyze this model and show how much you understand about this model. Yeah. So now what are the settings of parameters do we want to use for the model? Then finally, how do we want to evaluate the model? We use accuracy, precision, recall. Okay. Then a summary of how do we want to implement the entire methodology. That's going beyond what is required. Okay. And how do we want to design our experiment? So this is really important. Experimental design. So right now you just need to think about what are we doing right now is creating some algorithms that will be deployed in any machine, right? Any system. So this system will then help to automate tasks that humans do not want to do. Say, for example, we do not want to stand in front of garbage and classify garbage. So now we're just asking a robot to do that. And what are we doing right now is training the brain of this robot, right? So then, how can we trust this robot then? How much can we trust this robot? So it takes a lot to convince people to trust a machine. Therefore, we have to design our experiment carefully so that we have enough evidence to show that this robot can be trusted, right? So we have to study a lot of architectures, at least 2 architectures, and see what is their performance. Then we have to fine-tune each of these models to ensure that the one that we have chosen is the best among a lot of experiments that we have already tried. Okay? So which is why I think this experimental design is super important. And that is for assignment 1. That will conclude assignment 1. Okay? So intro, literature review, and methodology. The assignment 2 is really about just implementing, coding, everything. And how do we report the codes? Okay. Implementation, then it comes to analysis and recommendation, and finally conclusion. Can I just go through this one quickly? So it is about how we report the coding. Okay. And results. Yeah. Okay. So finally, there is a section, chapter 5. Chapter 5 is analysis and recommendation. Sometimes we can also call this discussion. Okay. So what do we do here? We did literature review. So the literature review will come here as we need their accuracy as our benchmark. Then how about the performance of those models which we achieve from our study? Say, for example, yes, out there, people are achieving 98, 86. But here we achieve 77, 76. Is it fine? Totally fine, because we are not too far from them. Right? We will just explain later on how can we make this better? What else can we try? Yeah. So the discussion will come in a paragraph form, right? Clear? What are the limitations of the current study? Then finally, we conclude the entire project with a very short conclusion. So in the past, students used to conclude their project in 3 paragraphs, which takes up a whole page. So that is not a conclusion to me, because if your conclusion is that inconclusive, it cannot be a conclusion. So make sure that conclusions are concise. Okay. That's all. And we have references. Questions? I'll also show you some videos, maybe not in this session, but probably in other sessions. Yeah. We will be using Google Colab. Yes. That should be feasible. Yeah. Question? So how does the student know what to put in each chapters? So they don't create everything themselves, but I will also provide you with this document where I have a summary of how each session is being graded. Okay. Then after these grading requirements, I will provide you with a guideline on how can we go about with that. Say, for example, abstract is a very simple 1 paragraph thing. So I will give you some suggestion on how do we go about and write the first sentence, second sentence, third to fifth sentence, so far and so forth. Okay. Introduction. This is a grading criteria. And how can we go about with that? So introduction, we must at least include intro, research goal, and objective. So for intro, what do we write? The background, the problem statement, the opportunity. Okay. And research goal, how do we write that sentence to develop something else, right? Then objectives, what are the objectives? We want to explore the use of something to predict something. Then we want to explore whatsoever. Okay. This is a guideline. Literature review. So these are the requirements. This is very big, 30% for assignment 1. So then I mentioned about summarizing the information from literatures, from papers, right? Then this is just a sample of table, as in what kind of information should we try to extract from those papers. So this is just a guideline. You do not have to follow the entire thing, but this is a good structure to start with. In case you couldn't find anything from the paper, you can just leave it blank. And at the end of the day, you format the entire paper or table based on all the information that you gathered. Okay? So in case you do not want to put your comments over here, it is also fine. Okay? Just make sure that your table can fit within 1 page so that it makes reading easy. Okay? Because at the end of the day, you will be analyzing the information that you put in the table itself. So then I mentioned about summarizing information in the table. After that, it will be analyzing the information, which comes in the form of paragraph. So this is how you can do it. So how do we analyze the collected information? We can come in from the perspective of data set. We can come in from the perspective of processing method. We can come in from how people represent their image. We can come in from what kind of bond model are people using? What are the best? What are the worst? This is just a guideline. We do not have to follow everything, but we must at least comment on what kind of model produce good or bad results. Okay. I mentioned about summarizing, analyzing, and finally put your analysis into action. So here it is. How do we formulate the gap analysis? these are just some of the sample questions that we can think about after summarizing those things. And how do we scope our research so that it's not too big and not too small? Okay, so these are some of the sample sentences that help that is meant to guide you through what you can think about. So for example, you do not have to follow entirely, but in case you have other questions in other format, just feel free to put them in this gap analysis. You can still check with me before your submission from time to time. So that's chapter 1. Then methodology. Methodology is again a very big part. We want to make sure that you really understand the architectures, because this is really important in case you want to work in a field that is related to CV or NLP. It is very important for you to be able to explain the architecture or models that you are trying to implement in the future. So this will be a very important chapter. So how can we go about with this chapter? We must make sure that we have a description of the data set. We must make sure that we have a session that describes the pre-processing method that we want to take. We must have a session that explains the selected model only, not all the models in the world, only those selected ones. And how do we want to evaluate the performance? Okay. Then I also mentioned that it is very important for you to design an experiment to say that, to give us sufficient evidence to say that, hey, the one that we create is one of the best that we can achieve right now. Okay, so it is important to design your experiment. This is just an example of how can you go about with designing the experiment. Again, we will use a table so that we put everything into structure. You do not have to follow everything, but this is just a guideline to guide your thought process. Finally, conclusion. It has to be short and sweet. That's why I put it here. Effectively summarize the key findings and insights. Okay. For example, assignment 1, how can we write our conclusion? So maybe just use these 3 sentences to guide your writing. First, we say we believe that the proposal of what aligns with the current state of art in image classification, of garbage classification. Then we say we propose additional steps that we think can improve this method further. Then finally, we want to mention that the implementation will be carried out in the following project. Correct? That's all. So what are the areas that you can, ultimately, what do we want to present in the conclusion is testify and defend our proposal. That's all. Submission requirements, just a checklist to make sure that you have everything before submission. Marking scheme. Okay. So for assignment 2, I also have the same thing over, which you can read on your own. So we'll still come to this if we have time or if many people have many questions. Okay. I think I have also included a sample presentation here, which you can access at your own time. Yeah. Yes. We are done for today. Questions? Yep.
Okay.
Questions from online students? Excited about the assignment? Yes, right? Have you formed your group? Yes, yeah. So yeah, so these people that you form a group with is going to stick together for the both assignments. Yeah. So choose your team members carefully. Yeah, we shall dismiss the class if we do not have further questions. See you next week.